In this example, I'm going to show you how to import a complex copybook that has multiple record types. So first of all, you can go into your Project Explorer, and I'm using the mapping perspective, and you can just go to Import, and this is assuming that you have a Cobalt copybook available to you, and then you're going to import a Cobalt copybook. So I'm going to click on Next, and then this is a local file. So it's on my laptop, and then I'm going to go to the directory where it's located, and I'm just going to import the name here, so you can see the copybook information over here to the right, and then click on Open. And then once I click on Open, I can click on Next, and have to be careful of the character encoding because all this data actually comes from usually comes from a mainframe that's EBCDIC, so you want to change the character encoding to be IBM 37 most of the time, and start column is usually 7 and 72 for the end column for COBOL, and then click on Next. So once you click on Next, it's going to read the copybook, and it's going to bring the information into here. Now, because this is a multiple record type copybook, it has multiple O1 levels in it, it's going to ask you which top level records to import. And in this case, we want to import them all because we're going to use them later on for mapping purposes. And so you can click on Next. And even if there is looping, you don't really want to worry about this right now. We're not going to generate a loop on each of these because we have to further build this out later on. So I'm just going to select None here and then click on Next. And then it's going to ask me where I want to put it. Now the name of the copybook is Complex Copybook, so I will just leave it as that and then click on Next. And once I click on Next and finish, it's going to create a new structure folder here for me, and then underneath each one of these it's going to have the different layouts. And so if we look at just look at each one of these, you can see here this is the layout. And for the data coming in, again, these are multiple record types, so you have one file that contains multiple record types, and these are all defined by this field called record type. And if you look in every one of these layouts here, you're going to see that there is a record type field. And once we start building this out as a new structure to combine all this back together so we can actually process the file, we will take care of the record number. Also, each one of these has different representations. So by default, you're going to have a flat file representation and an XML representation. Now, once you start building this out, which we'll do here a little bit later in a different video, you'll be able to see the data represented in flat file or XML. And you can actually add other representations by just clicking and right mouse click, and you can add JSON or Java or EDI. So very flexible there. Now I'm going to show you how to create an output structure. And in this case, we are taking the COBOL structure, and we're going to write it out to individual files. So for every record type, such as FHR, FTR, we're actually going to write this out to a separate file. So you have an FHR.out, FTR.out. These are just going to be flat files. And so what you have to do is actually create a new structure. And so this one we have a structure called FHR.out, and then you're going to perform right mouse click, create the root, and then you're going to create a loop. So the loop, once you create a loop, is going to look something like this. So you're going to basically have a 0 to -1, and so this is going to make this a loop, and then underneath this is your actual layout. And notice here that this is inheriting this record type. So we're inheriting the layout for the FHR record data. And so that's basically all you have to do for each of the record types is you create the record type and then give it a loop. And so you can see here for every one of these, that's what we've done. And then you have to have, again, another kind of outer structure for that. So here I have one called submissions file out, And so for each one of these, I am just basically pointing to the FHR out that I've created. So again, this is inheriting from the outputs, FHR out. And so that's going to inherit that directly in there. And then after you've created your outputs, the next step is to go ahead and create your mappings. So I'm going to go ahead and jump up here under mappings. And so under maps, I have one here. And to create a mapping, it's very simple. So let me go and just show you that first. So you just create, go to maps, new, and new map. And so here it's going to ask the different types of map. And this is a standard map, so we'll just choose that. And we'll give it a name. So I'm just going to call it test. And then it's just basically drag and drop. So this is your input and your output. And so go back to your structure, and you're going to take your input. I'm actually going to use, we just drop that in there. Let's can take this one that I've created, drop it in there, and now you can see the layout that you saw before. And then your output layout is going to be the one from in here, and we're just going to take this file out and then drop it over there. Okay, so once you've done that, then you can go through and start doing your mappings, and it will do auto mapping for you. So you can take the FHR to FHR, and I don't think I dropped it in there right. Go down to the loop level. So you have to go down to the appropriate level. So I had to go down to the loop level, and now you can see that it's mapped, and each one of these you click on individually, it'll show you where it's mapped. Okay, so that's the basics of the mapping. Now there are other properties we have to set to get this to work correctly. And so I'm going to jump back over here to the actual mapping that we've performed, and just going to expand this. Now for every output that you have, and for every loop, you have to set some conditions here. So for the FHR, first of all, we have to just determine whether it's an FHR record or not. Remember, you have to do it on the source side to actually select that record and put it into the FHR format. And on the target side, you just have to determine whether it's there or not. So underneath the emit, you just drag and drop the is present. So again, underneath functions here, there is an is present right here. So just drag and drop that in there, and then the input value is going to be actually from the source side. So you're going to have to drop the actually this value here. So you're going to, is this actually present? And if it is, then it's going to write it out to there. Okay, and then for the loop, you actually need to set looping up on this. And so in this case, there's really two different things you have to set up. You have to set up the simple loop, and again, that's just a drag and drop from over here. And then, so here's a simple loop under loop, and then the map element is going to be this high level file layout. And then you're going to put a filter on, again, just checking to see if the FHR record data is present. And so if it is, then it's going to write it out. And we have to do a loop here because there's a possibility in these different record types that you might have multiple records of the same record type. So you just basically have to do that for each one of these. And it's the similar process all the way across. So once you've done your mappings and set up your different business rules and looping, you can actually test this. And it's really nice because you can just click on test run, and it's going to show you the output. So here is, this is a FHR record, and you have a choice between XML or flat file. And so that's XML, which is easier to read in the testing, or you can see it in flat file format. Okay, so again, XML is easier to read. And then there's some in here like this one that have multiple occurrences. So here we have the loop, and if you look down, you can see for in here there's multiple loops, so there's multiples of these record types. And So once you have all the mappings done, then you also need to you have to choose how you want to write this out. And so there is underneath functions, you go to IO database underneath functions, you can control how you write it out. So we have this input and database. So here we have this, it's called write URL. And so you just drag and drop that over, and then you select it and you double click on it. So you can change the representation again to, in this case, flat or XML, and then you choose the file where you want to write it out to. Okay, and so once you actually run this, then it's going to, so you can go up here to test, and so you can test the run map, and so you can actually test run to external file. So if you test run to external output, it's actually going to run this and it's going to write it out to this output. Okay, you can also, you can test it every level. So here it's going to show the whole layout. So you have your FHR, your TFH. So this will show every record type is being written.